Radio show where we talk about all the craziness of small business. It's that craziness that actually makes it exciting, interesting, and totally unpredictable. This is Business Insanity Talk Radio with your host, Barry Moltz.
Welcome back. My next guest is Dan Wilczek. He's the Sage North American Senior Vice President General Manager for the Sage Sales Logic and Sage Act Customer Relationship Management System. Dan's responsible for driving the development and performance of CRM systems purpose-built for small and mid-sized businesses. Dan, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Barry.
You know, I've always been fascinated with tablet devices. I had one of the first tablets, believe it or not, that had a stylus, and I've owned an iPad for a long time, have a Microsoft Surface on order. Now there really are tablets coming out with USB ports, and it's really exploded. How do we figure out which tablet or mobile device really is best for the owner of a small business?
Well, there's a couple of things. I think that, you know, depending on what applications people want to use, then I would pick something that's HTML5 compliant. You know, so most tablets have browsers built in, and if you have something that's HTML5 compliant, then most business software will be able to work within that context. You know, so some applications are built specifically for a particular device, and you know, you might want to pick that device. But really, the tablet makers today are trying to reach a wider audience, and so they're making it so that really any business software will work on their device. So, and they're becoming much more of a commodity, as you know. So the differences between an iPad and a Kindle Fire or something like that, you know, they're relatively minor, with the exception of the Surface, as you mentioned, right, which is very Microsoft based. They'll have their different pros and cons.
Well, it's interesting. One of the frustrations, I really have two frustrations, you know, with my mobile device, the iPad, which is that, you know, it doesn't run Flash, and also there aren't any USB ports on it. Is that really important, or since everything's up in the cloud as far as business applications, that doesn't really matter?
You know, I think we've moved past that, Barry. I think that, you know, used to be that, you know, the closed environment where you could only do things in the cloud or within that particular device was an irritation for people, but I think that was a smart move in some ways, because then you can progress the technology on your tablet within a defined environment, and the experience is better. You know, but like you said, really everything's in the cloud today. So now, you know, Dropbox or file storage or applications, everything is up in the cloud, so you really don't need the ports anymore, unless you're going to try to back it up or load things on there. But the technology has moved past that at this point.
It's interesting. So for a small business owner, what do you think are some of the applications that they should be using to make sure that, you know, with mobile and mobile devices? I assume that, you know, they want their salespeople to have access no matter where they are to the information about your company.
Sure. So, well, we make a number of products, one of which is customer relationship management, so I would obviously advocate for that one. I think that when we use our devices, it's really email and connecting to information and connecting to you know, information in our host system. So that's, you know, that's just a browser, that's email. But I think that the big thing that a small business owner ought to look at is how to manage their customer relationships. How do I make sure that I understand the people that I'm trying to sell to, you know, what their preferences are, and what their you know, what their issues are, what their business requirements are. And that's really done through like a CRM system or a contact management system.
You know, it really amazes me that how many small businesses still don't have a customer relationship management system where they're keeping track of, you know, who their customers are, when they talk to them last, you know, make sure they get back to them. And when their best salespeople, as I say, get run over by a bus or they quit, they're really up a creek, right?
Yeah, there's the whole issue around retention of that information, which is a huge asset for businesses that may not remember, you know, to have that in their systems. And so a CRM, of course, helps you maintain that. You know, so if you have, you know, as you said, salespeople leave the business, then your business doesn't go down because you can't continue to sell to those particular prospects. So that's a huge piece to it. But I think it's really more of the ability to get in front of customers and sell in a very modern way. You know, so if you come into a client and and you're using an old laptop or a phone that's not really a smartphone, and you can't really access information, then you're not in a advantageous situations. But if you come in there and you have a tablet and it's got live information about that customer and their LinkedIn profiles and their Twitter feeds and things like that, you're much more in tune with what their needs are, and then they're much more impressed with you as a salesperson. Say, hey, this person and this company, is in the modern age, and this is somebody I can trust and I can do business with.
Yeah, it really sends a message whether, you have that little sleek tablet or you're pulling out your flip phone, right?
Exactly, right. Well, and I saw somebody with a flip phone recently. I was just amazed that people are even using these anymore, but apparently they are.
Listen, wait till someone comes out with one of those big bricks we used to use back in the 80s. So, talking about bricks, small business owners, they're really confronted with this whole idea of, BYOD, bring your own device. Mm-hmm. What do you think the mobile policy around that should be? Is that a good thing? Is that a bad thing? Or guess what? We just got to get used to it.
Oh, I think it needs to be bring your own device, and that we've had tremendous success here at Sage and with some of our customers with that, because it solves a lot of problems. A small business has to worry about, do I supply devices to people? What device, and then keeping them up to date, and the software issues, and making sure they're all integrated to my other systems. And you don't have to do all that. You can just say, listen, I'll supply, $50 per month or something like that, and to supplement whatever you're going to buy. And then as long as any of those devices, as I said, are HTML5 compliant, you can still run your applications on them. And then the employees can buy what they want and use it in their personal lives and their business lives, and it's a really neat little system. So let me tell you a fast example. So one of our big customers is a clothing retailer, very high-end clothing retailer. In fact, they won the Gartner and Saugatuck CRM awards this past year. It's huge honor for them. Well, this is a very, very high-end clothing retailer that Elton John's a client, for example, so you get a sense of what kind of transactions they're doing. They have a service where they go in and they video your closet and they look at all your clothes and they can say, well, gee, that was out of date, last year, and you ought to buy this pair of shoes and so forth. So it's very high touch. So when one of those customers comes into their stores and the salesperson comes up with their mobile device, whatever device they had, that they bought themselves but runs our software on it, and they say, oh, Mr. Johnson, how are you? And nice to see you again. And, what can we do for you? And, and if you were looking at these particular jackets, you know what? I have the video of your closet. I know everything that you own, and does this match what you need? So the moral of the story is two things. One is it's about personalization. So you're going to sell to that customer because they know that you know them, that you have a relationship with them, and that you understand their needs in a very detailed way. So because of the technology that they're using. And then the second moral of the story is the BYOD, which you brought up earlier. Because that person had a device that they use and they're familiar with, but was able to run the application on it because it's HTML5 compliant, it didn't matter what application, what phone they had. It only mattered that they were able to run the application on it. So those two things are very, very powerful, that you can use a mobile device to increase your sales and increase the effectiveness of your sales force. And then you're retaining all that information, as you mentioned earlier. You have all that stuff in your system, what the guy bought, what he's going to buy. The new line comes out, you send him an email and say, hey, we have this new stuff coming. And that works across multiple industries. Just having that knowledge in your hand, is very, very powerful.
God, I want that. I can't tell you how many times I go shopping and go, don't I have a shirt or a jacket that looks just like that? I really wish I knew what was in my closet. So
I'll hook you up with these guys.
It's a great story. And is that why you say, I love this, you say mobile is for closers?
Mm-hmm. That's right. Yeah, this is about, are you going to be able to close the deal? Are you going to be somebody that they can trust and appreciate that what's going on? So when we go into our sales cycles, when we're selling to customers and we're selling our software, we go in and solve their business problems, and we talk all about the requirements and all the cool technology that we built. We bring out the mobile. Okay, and we say, and we pass it around the room. Let's let you play with the application, let you do what you have to do, and it's already customized to their particular environment. And they hit 2 or 3 buttons on this thing, and they're fascinated by it. The deal is closed. Boom. So as soon as people can recognize how they can use your software in a very real way, then that helps close the business. Whereas people are sort of figuring out how they might be able to use it. Does this really meet my needs? It's not very clear. until they can get the thing in their hands. And that's what mobile does for you, is you'll be able to show people exactly how you would use it, because you're using it, in the sales cycle. So it's very, very powerful. And we see so many clients that are on older software and they can't get their salespeople to use the application because it's clunky. They got to put stuff in there, and they're resisting. But when you give them something that's cool and that works the way that they work, it's out in the field with them, they feel enabled, and they feel empowered, and they go into that that sales situation and they feel like they're going to look good, that they're going to be able to display whatever it is they're trying to sell, and they're going to look smart and professional, right? And that's worth worlds all by itself.
I think it's a great point. Dan, thanks so much for being on the show. Where can people learn about the mobile solutions that you guys sell?
Our website is na.sage.com.
Dan, thanks so much. Have a good weekend.
Thanks, Barry.